Hi there, I'm Rick Vanover from Veeam, and I am happy to give to you what I call VeeamON Wrapped. It's all wrapped up, but not really. I want to highlight 5 must-see moments from the virtual experience that was part captured in New York, but also available on the online experience. It's going to be a quick list. Let's get into it. Number one that I want to bring up to you comes from the keynote. Anand Iswaran, our CEO, really lays out the vision of so much, some business updates, why we're here in this time, why now, for some of the changes about being the data and AI trust company. But I really like walking through these different eras. True story. I go into the office every day and I tell people that, hey, there's really 3 problems that we've solved. Things like natural disaster, fire, flood, and blood, then ransomware, and now the agentic risk. He's put this into a very clear journey from way back in time to today and tomorrow. So check out these 3 eras of threats and what's going on with our data today. Here, right from on that one.
We look at it as there are 3 eras of protecting and creating value from data, which is and as we all know, data is the primary rhythm of business. The first era, backup and recovery, it had one simple rule: assume, restore. When something breaks, bring it back. And we redefined this era. We invented instant recovery. We got the world to a 2-minute RTO, the time it takes to get your business back, when the industry standard was hours. We built the broadest workload coverage on the planet across virtual machines, physical, hybrid, multi-cloud, SaaS, Kubernetes, and it keeps going. Because your data doesn't live in one place, your protection shouldn't either. And then came era 2, cyber resilience. The rule changed from if breach to when, expected. Ransomware became a board-level imperative, and it continues to be. And Veeam built the only end-to-end answer with immutable backups, inline malware detection to catch that ransomware in flight, and SLA, the industry's only SLA-backed recovery, incident response capabilities with CyberSecure. And we are not done. As threats evolve, Veeam is evolving as well, like staying ahead of the quantum threat to encryption. It's already on the horizon. And now, we are in era 3, the agentic era. And the new rule here is assume autonomy. This isn't a gradual evolution as we have seen in the last few months, last few days. In fact, just in the last 7 hours, OpenAI, as you might have seen, announced Project Daybreak, which is their answer to Project Mythos, to make sure that you can use their models for vulnerability detection. This shift is happening every single hour. And it's a fundamental shift in who and what is going to access your data and act on your data. And era 3, as you see here, is not one shift. It actually is 3 triggers coming together, colliding at once. And each one of them rewrites what protecting data must be. And I'm going to show you how.
Number 2, I encourage you to hear the other part of the keynote from Rehan Jalil. He was the CEO and founder of Security AI, the newest part of our portfolio, and he leads all of our products here at Veeam. He is walking through the 5 different parts of data access intelligence and contextual data AI intelligence. This is a really good precursor for really explaining from a technical side all of the different capabilities, whether it's data discovery and classification, the data access intelligence, AI intelligence, data subject intelligence, as well as privacy intelligence. Really eye-opening. This is an area that I've been on a journey to learn, and the way he lays it out here in this segment makes number 2 on my list, and it's a really good way for you to understand the Veeam of today.
The first thing, if you have data, all data is not equal. Some data is very sensitive, very high value. It could be your intellectual property. It could be your source code. It could be the PII, personal information that you collect from your consumers, and you have very explicit regulatory compliance requirements on it. But if it's all mixed up, you don't know, then you can't be surgical about what policies you want to apply. So classification, the efficacy of it, the speed with which you can do and classify data becomes very, very important. But even when you classify the data, you want to attach it to all data more automatically, whether it's structured or unstructured, and have the whole context. On the right side, what you're seeing is not only it classifies with every file, every column, every stream, what is sensitive, but it attaches it to the context. Who created it, who owned it, who's acting on it. That is where the true power actually comes from. You're going to see that in some of the things that I'm going to talk through. You have access understanding. Who has access to this data? Think about an organization with thousands of employees, tens of thousands, and the complexity comes in not just understanding data, but understanding who has access and who should or should not have access to data. And how do you enforce and apply that at any given time? Because people keep changing roles, new people keep coming into the company, and it has to stay in a hygiene state. So which means, again, the knowledge graph can really help you to understand the full context, not in isolation, not access and identity in isolation, but very much intertwined with actual understanding of the data. Then you have AI. Understanding what AI is operating inside your company already. At any time you need to know what AI agents and AI models are active, what data they can touch, and what are they really doing. This gives you that additional context tied to your data and access, but AI also. Then data subject intelligence. So this is very much tied to the individual rights that humans have, that if they give you their data and you hold them in your companies, they have very specific rights. The data belongs to that individual. You need to know whose data it is. The people data graph inside it actually helps you do that. The additional layer of complexity really pops up with regulations, which frankly, very much needed now that we are in this era. And there is no one regulation. There is a list of regulations that keep evolving over time, and there is no manual way to be compliant. The old days of doing compliance on spreadsheets or on glorified spreadsheets and web tools is gone. If data is changing so fast and access and changes so fast, you really need to know who has how can you stay compliant across all these regulations in much more automated fashion. But if you don't have intelligence on what data has what kind of obligations at any given time, there's no way to be compliant in reality. On paper, it's a different story.
Number 3 comes from a virtual exclusive part of the content. I had really enjoyed this session by Matt Crape, Corinne Bissett, and Kirsten Stoner. That was all demos of both Veeam Data Platform and Veeam Data Cloud, whether it's Veeam Data Cloud Vault or protecting Entra and Microsoft 365 and Veeam Data Cloud. They went through a lot. And I want to pass it over to Matt Crape, where he walks through showing some of the important parts of the Veeam software appliance, which is truly an incredible innovation that we've brought to market, a really easy way to have a pre-configured, pre-hardened Veeam infrastructure. And it really is a good set of information about the environment that the Veeam software appliance runs, but then he walks through Veeam Backup and Replication and Veeam Recovery Orchestrator. Let's hear from Matt.
So let's actually jump into a demo here, and we'll take a look at seeing some of these things in action and how Veeam Data Platform can help you achieve this. So first off, if you haven't tried out the Veeam software appliance yet, this interface might look a little bit different to you. I want to call this out. This is the host management console. What is that? Well, it's a way to manage the appliance. It gives you that real appliance-like experience, except this is all software-based. So what's really interesting about this is now you can have that division of duties. You're able to actually say, maybe these users can go in there and actually manage just the appliance and not worry about the actual application, Veeam Backup and Replication, for example. So it really unlocks some real strong capabilities here. And these are all things that you would expect to have on an appliance, right? So we could change passwords, we could go in here, we could adjust network settings, But where it gets really interesting is when you start looking at things like remote access. You'll see that we're able to turn things off and on. So for example, the SSH server is off by default. This is a great example of one of the tasks I mentioned earlier when it comes to reducing the attack surface. You want to make sure that your backup server is secure as can be. And how else can we do that? We've got things, for example, like this automatic updating going on. You'll see this system's completely up to date. We could go back and take a look at the history and see what was actually updated and when. Lots of details available. The real benefit here is that you're able to keep the system up to date based on a window that you can set up. So you're not there babysitting things, applying updates, staying up till 3 in the morning if you don't need to. But once again, that also reduces the attack surface by plugging holes before they become a problem. And all this without the need to actually have that specialized Linux infrastructure skill set. Rather, this is all done through the web UI here. One last thing I want to highlight here is this users and roles. You'll see this is a fantastic way to manage your users, whether they are security officers, whether they are host admins, so forth and so forth. You can set up service accounts in here if you need them. This gives you that flexibility to really start to get granular with who has what permissions to manage this appliance. So if you haven't played with V13 yet, you probably have not seen this fantastic new web UI. You'll see it's super responsive. It gives you lots of details right off the hop. And it's really meant to be the way forward. So keep an eye on this. We're going to keep adding more and more to it. But let's take a quick tour around what we have in here. You'll see a lot of the interfaces are modeled around what we already have today, what you might be used to with a thick client. We've got your jobs, we've got your backups, we've got your repositories. Now, one that I want to call out here is Veeam Data Cloud Vault. Veeam Data Cloud Vault, as you may or may not know, it's our solution. It's the way that we're able to actually give you that immutability with that logical layer gap. So this is hosted in our Veeam Data Cloud infrastructure, but it gives you immutability and it integrates right into Veeam Backup Replication. So I touched on why this is important earlier, but to recap that quickly, it's really a matter of being able to get your data off-site and still have that separation of duties. So I can access this data, I can restore it, I can back up to this vault, but I can't go in there and actually delete this data, even though I'm running as an admin on here. Another area that we need to jump into is the whole idea around a lot of the infrastructure. You'll see that we now have the Veeam Infrastructure Appliance. This solves a lot of the same problems as the Veeam Software Appliance in the sense of it's purpose-built, it's hardened by default, and we're actually able to give you the centralized management in here. So we can actually perform updates on these infrastructure components if they're running the VIA. Once again, though, you don't actually need any specialized Linux skills or anything like that. This is all built to be a very seamless experience. Taking a look here, you'll see that we can actually go through here and we could check for updates. If we had any updates to install, we can actually install those as well. And this gives you that real lifecycle management that you need for larger environments. When you have all sorts of different components all over the place, keeping them up to date can be a massive challenge. And this is a fantastic way to overcome that challenge. Now, lastly, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about one of the key capabilities of the Veeam Software Appliance here is you'll note that the default backup repository is actually immutable. So you have this immutability available right out of the box. So why is that important? Well, you've heard me talk about immutable backups and threat actors and so forth, but now you can really start stitching this all together to create that real 32110 story. And this is all done through the Veeam Data Platform. We're able to give you Linux hardened repositories, for example, as part of the Veeam Infrastructure Appliance. We are also able to give you that default immutable repository baked in here if you would like that. You've got your offsite copy with Veeam Data Cloud Vault. And when you put that all together and you incorporate things, for example, like Sure Backup, it really starts to paint the picture of how you can start closing that resilience gap that we talked about. Now, all this is fine and dandy, but we need to talk about reporting as well. What does that actually look like? Well, if you've been a Veeam user for any time now, you probably recognize the Veeam Threat Center. And you'll see that we've pulled that right into the web UI here. So it's one stop. You could go in here, you could get an idea of what your resilience looks like right at a quick glimpse. But we've also got access to all these various reports, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper into these shortly. But being able to look through the reports catalog, maybe you want to look for immutable backups since we're talking about that, and we're able to find these reports quick and easy. Now, all this is fantastic for creating that environment where you need to make sure that things stay resilient. But what about when you actually need to perform this at a large scale? Maybe you need some orchestration, you need some detailed plans. That's really where Veeam Recovery Orchestrator comes in and shines. We're able to create all sorts of test recovery plans. We're able to do things, for example, like take your VMware backups and restore them to Microsoft Azure. We're able to take physical backups powered by, say, Veeam Agent for Windows and restore those as VMs. We're also able to do cross-hypervisor, take your VMware backups and restore them to Hyper-V, for example. So lots of flexibility involved here. And you can actually see at a glance, are you hitting the RPOs that you're setting forth? Is there anything that's maybe in danger of failing? So this allows you to get very proactive with what you can do, as well as leverage its reporting. You're able to go in here and actually run these reports automatically so that you know with confidence, is there something in there that I shouldn't be restoring? Can I perform a clean recovery if I need to?
All right, number 4 on the list. This one's really cool. We've seen the data command graph a number of different times. And, I've explained it, I've had it explained, but for those of you watching this might be still a relatively new concept for you. Well, I thought in the virtual experience, I really thought on the data classification section from Gareth Spanglet and Colin Scully, they talked about how you can get started to just understand the data AI command center, but then more importantly, how to interpret one of those graphs. Let's hear from Colin and Gareth.
So how does security actually deliver on these outcomes? What is the data AI command center?
So the data AI command center is a unified platform that understands all of your data and AI systems. It connects to your public clouds, data clouds, private infrastructure, SaaS applications, and AI models, and it builds a comprehensive intelligence layer on top of all of them. And at its core is the data AI command graph, a contextual knowledge graph that captures not just what data you have, but the full web of relationships around it. Who has access? What processes touch it? What regulations apply? What AI systems are interacting with it? And what third-party tools have visibility into it? That graph is what enables the contextual intelligence that none of the point solutions can deliver. And on top of that graph, we provide 5 categories of automated controls: accelerate AI adoption, minimize data rot, govern data access, prevent data exposure, and automate compliance.
So it's not just scanning, it's understanding context and relationships across the entire environment.
And that's a great way to put it, Colin. It is about leveraging the context to surface, prioritize, and remediate data-related risks. Scanning tells you what's there. The data command graph tells you what it means, who's at risk, and what you should do about it. That distinction is what makes the difference between a dashboard full of alerts and findings and actionable intelligence on risk.
So how does the market recognize security in this space?
Well, the independent analyst validation is strong. GigaOM recently ranked security number 1 in their DSPM radar, ahead of players like Wiz, Palo Alto, and Proofpoint. Their principal analyst described it as a truly enterprise-grade solution built to handle the largest and most complex data and AI challenges. Frost & Sullivan named us the most innovative data security posture management leader. We are very proud of our ratings and market recognitions because they reflect the real evaluation of the breadth, depth, and innovation of our platform.
Number 5, customers. That's right, a trick play. And I got 2 of them that really round out the end. We had 2 customer stories on the virtual experience, and I really liked both of these. First on the top was Eli Edelkind from Kava. We really talked about how an organization that had to make it work for a small team, he talks about some of his industry and how they have to really make the most of their investments, and yet they have lower margins because they're in the restaurant business. I love Eli's perspective here. So check out that one and Trick Play. I also brought in my good friend Nico Stein from a financial institution in Maryland, Signal Financial. He really has a good perspective around immutability, new hypervisors. I know everybody's dealing with that. Both of these customers were really gracious. Thank you both, Nico and Eli, for sharing your perspectives here at the VeeamON virtual experience. No better way to hear. I think that's fascinating for a number of reasons. One, because you've got like that CISO responsibility and then additional responsibilities that really, Eli, sits to where Veeam is going. And I know that you're familiar with the security AI products, but these other products really just get me excited. I love it. But I'm convinced that when you went on this journey, on this data discovery journey, you kind of walked into that data security posture management practice as you expected. But I got to think some of the finer points in life or finer points in IT kind of became a priority. And I'm looking at your website now. There's advanced, ordering capabilities. And I think when you're talking about some of the privacy and the cookies and consent, some of those things come into play as well.
Yeah, one of the great things that I like about the platform is I have a relatively small team. Restaurant is by its nature, restaurant has lower margins than what you would expect in other industries. And so we have to really monitor our G&A. We really have to manage our team dynamics and our growth in the back office to manage things. But the expectations at Kava are very large for us. So we have to really have outsized capabilities than what you would typically expect. And so one of the things that we do is in certain areas like this, we take full advantage of platforms that enable us to get multi capabilities out of them. So as we started to really dig deep in our digital environment, coming out with our own unified web and other capabilities, we started to unleash. We use cookie consent. We have our privacy policy in security AI, and we do our data subject rights requests through it. Makes it very easy to where our engineering teams don't have to worry about the privacy and that type of stuff. They just host the iframe and don't have to worry about all the things that come with building out those types of capabilities. It's just part of our package and part of how we do things. The automation behind it is really awesome. Allows us to respond to guest requests and things like that relatively quickly and make sure that we have the data well in hand and are doing the best we can for our guests. Over time, we've also been able to, we've been going over the last year and a half doing our data transformation, really upgrading the way that we manage our data. Part of the cause of that was how well we were seeing and understanding different issues with how we were managing data, and we're able to tell that story of how we need to do better. But as we onboarded other tools to really manage data, security AI is integrated really well to help us understand data governance, help us to govern our data better, and build us out a very good picture of our data lineage.
Oh, I love there's a lot to unpack there. Number one, for the folks watching this, immutability is an absolute must-have, to Nico's point. And Nico, I love how you took it to the board of the fact that a disaster that we are most likely to have happen is a cyber/ransomware type of incident. That we have data indicating that the current, I have it right here, the current 2026 Data Trust and Resilience Report even indicates that I want to say 30% of organizations have had an incident in the last year. So you have to prepare for this. I love that you've done that. I love that you took it to the board. Here's a zinger for the audience out there. If you think about object storage, immutable Veeam backups in a bucket, you mentioned on-prem, you mentioned the storage clouds that you're using. If our customers have those backups in an immutable bucket and they have their encryption password, we don't have a tech support case record on file of a client unable to recover data. That is super powerful when it comes to these ransomware threats. So if you don't have an immutable backup, that's an absolute must do. but I highly recommend organizations save that encryption password, as well as maybe some bucket keys and things like that, the very practical things that you would need to use that data. Save that in your secret server, save that in your password manager type of thing, so that if you're in an absolute recovery scenario, you have everything you need. But I digress. Love that perspective, Nico. One last question for you, if you've got the time. What can Veeam do for you? What's your wish list? You're very hands-on, very tinkerer, from the home lab to the hospital, from the basement to the bank. You're doing it. But what do you want from our products as you go forward in your operations?
It's funny that you ask, Rick, and I'm not completely disclosing where I'm at right now. Let's put it as a conference in Vegas. So I would love feature parity for other hypervisors, right? I mean, we all know the Broadcom. We don't need to go down there. Companies are looking for alternatives. They want Veeam to work with it. They also want all the cool features, right? We're moving, it's not a secret, moving away from Broadcom. I'm losing some features that close to my heart, like Sure Backup. So if I can have one wish, Rick, feature parity for other hypervisors as soon as possible, please.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm gonna give you one better, Nico. And for those of you watching, absolutely. Our product teams across the board, it's plural, they are prioritizing parity across the hypervisors. So you will see it is absolutely reasonable to expect some of the newer platforms that we've announced really from Proxmox forward when it comes to from a timeline standpoint. So I'm talking about Proxmox, I'm talking about the Scale hypervisor, talking about HPE VME Essentials, and I've probably forgotten some. As we go forward, yes, absolutely. Directionally, you will see things like threat detection. You will see ransomware detection, the inline or threat hunter type scanning. You'll see instant recovery. You'll see replication and other things like that. It's going to depend. Each one of the platforms have their own nuances, but directionally, those are being prioritized by our product teams. That's my vague directional answer with no timeline, but you have been heard, Nico, and others in the
Love it.
market for sure. You know what? You got to act. You got to go over to VeeamON.com. And again, the on-demand content, this and more, are available only for a limited time. So hopefully you can go register and check it out. Those highlights are my personal top 5. What are yours? Click today and watch the VeeamON content before it's gone.